Hey Exalts, Shake here, back with another meta report, and just in time for Tumult Championships. Before we get started, the timing of these videos are going to be off balanced as we have to wait till the first of every month so we can gather all the data of the previous month. We'll try to upload them within the first week of the current month, but no promises. Alright, lots to discuss, so let's get into it. This time we went above and beyond and gathered all the leaders that were present in our sample size of 23 tournaments. Here we see that Sigismar is clearly the most represented with a whopping 143 decks, followed by Afanas with 89 decks. So, unless changes are made, those decks are the ones to beat. Rounding off the leaders, we have Fen, Kojo and Teija, all close to 60 deck represented. A fun fact, it would seem that nobody played Orc last month, or at least their performances weren't documented. Apart from them, all other leaders were played at least once. So moving on to the top 4 representations. This slide shows the leaders that made it to the top 4. No surprise here, as the most represented leaders from the total are also reflected as the most successful leaders in the top 4. Sigismar claiming the number 1 spot, having 30 decks make it to top 4. Kojo matching Afanas with 16 decks, followed by Fen and Teija as we round out leaders. Also, kinda surprised to see Preston Sierra, as the suspension of Bastion hit extreme hard, so good for them. Nice spread, but will the ranking reflect this? For this, we gave each leader that placed first 3 points, second place got 2 points, third place was awarded 1 point, and fourth place got 0 points. Thus, we have Trest chilling on the bottom again, earning himself an honorable mention. This time, it's Sigismar taking the win with 39 points total, followed by Afanas with 32 points spread across 16 decks. Then it's Fen switching places with Teija compared to last month, and although Kojo was represented in the top 4 more often than Teija, by like twice the decks, she still got him beat by 1 point. So now we have a ranking, but user Wolf LOL1 brought to my attention that this ranking is skewed. It's skewed to the more popular decks, and to prevent this, we have to normalize the data. By doing so, we will get the overall performance of the deck. This is my take on trying something like that, and if we've made a mistake, let us know in the comments. What we do here is we take the points a leader has earned and divide it by the number of representations. This makes Teija the best overall performing deck, followed by Afanas, then Fen, and surprisingly Lindway. Alright, let's be honest, this is pretty cool. But going forward, this would mean that the deck analysis would include Lindway and exclude Sigismar, while Sigismar is the more popular deck. So do with this what you will, but as a content creator, I want to appeal to the larger audience. Thus, I will still use the ranking for deciding which decks will be analyzed. I hope you can understand. And with that, it's off to the first deck. But before we get into it, let's talk math. We have a sample size of 30, which means we went through 30 decks. Now, we assume that each deck consists of 39 cards, so we get 30 decks times 39 cards, which is 1170 cards. If we divide 100% by that number, we get about 0.085%, and that's 1 card. Then, we multiply that 1 card by the value we counted. For instance, 90, which is the number of copies we counted for teamwork training. That then gives us 7.69% we see next to teamwork training. Alright, one more to go. So we have a sample size of 30 decks. Now we take the value that we counted, again the 90 copies of teamwork training, and divide that by 30. That gives us the average amount that the card is played across all decks. In this case, that rounds out nicely to a 3. So all decks included this card as trio. We did not include this number in the graph, and if you'd like us to for future videos, let us know in the comments. That's it for the math, and now a few notes for the graph. As you can see, we've only listed the 20 most played cards, and at the bottom you can see a new category, Other. These are the cards that didn't make the cut to be featured in our graph, otherwise the list would become way too long and totally unreadable. Hence, Other. Judging by the size of the entry, you can gauge the multitude of different cards people included to fill out their decks. Furthermore, we highlighted the rare cards in the color of the faction this time, just to help spot them. A little tip I got from my buddy Mark. Let us know in the comments what you think of this new format, and if there are any changes you'd like us to make. Finally, disclaimer, this is not a perfect list. This is just a list of mostly used cards that are played in decks that have performed very well. Now, I'm looking into making these into separate slides, and I would like to have a character featured that looks the most like a feature. If you have a suggestion, let me know in the comments, and the character that is suggested the most will get a trial run. With that out of the way, we can move on to Sigismar. Here we see a shift in the top played cards compared to last month. Teamwork Training moved up a spot, while Monolith Legat moved from 8th place to 2nd, and Rallying Call making its way to 5th from 16th nonetheless, bumping out Foundry Mechanic and the Frog Prince. With Sigismar battling Afanas, Ben, and Teija, these two cards make a lot of sense. Legat helps with preventing problematic cards to re-hit the field, especially the anchored characters Ben and Teija can put out. Furthermore, all three of these decks have access to easy sleep spells, which a perfectly timed Rallying Call can just win you the game. The video is getting a bit long, so I'm not going to go through all the cards, just the major changes. If you need a closer look, I believe we posted the list of last month on our Instagram page. You can pull those up and pause the video to compare for yourselves, or just pull up both videos, right? Like, you're smart, you'll figure it out. Alright, next up, Afanas. Again, a shift in the top played cards as people are playing more Moths and more Conjuring Seals. Moth to a Flame makes perfect sense. It's a 3-cost 3/3/3 because of your leader ability, and a great turn 1 play if you're going second. Not a lot of things can beat those stats on turn 1, if I'm not mistaken, and you'll have another Moth ready to go at a discount for next turn. Don't really get the Conjuring Seals, maybe people feel like they're running out of steam in the late game. However, 3 mana to draw 2 seems pricey. If someone can tell me more about this, I'd love to hear your thoughts. For now, we go to Fan. Here we see a huge shift as Fan is adapting to the meta, where before we played Incaster, Aloe Vera, Capella Training, and Clock Cocoon in the top cards, but who are now pushed aside for Hathor and Twinkle Twinkle, favoring recursion more and cheap semi-removal, which in turn explains the inclusion of Rallying Call we saw earlier. Fan is still standing strong, together with Teija, with a few shifts here and there. For instance, Ogun grew in popularity and self-anchoring characters actually dropped. Think Harvesters, Dracinas, and Shroom, in favor of Caregiver and Druid. So instead of having the characters inherently gain anchored, Teija is now preferring to choose what to anchor. Or maybe it's better to say she's actually doubling up on the anchor strategy. And special surprise, I also included Kojo. Unfortunately, we don't have previous data to compare him with, but we can look at the top cards included. So Bravo's struggling with card advantage. It's no surprise to see the Serengar as the top inclusion, followed by Fire Rabbit, which is a great one-drop. Having the flexibility to add a boost to a character turn you play the card is great, as it makes your Serengar and Tiny Jin's life. Speaking of Tiny Jin, he has 3rd place because the little guy can win you an expedition and afterwards ramp, which can save you from channeling a card next turn and thus generate card advantage. Then we see the Bastion with only a 2.5 inclusion among the 16 decks. I don't think this is correct. It's such a good card and it should be played at 3. Then, rounding off the top cut, it's Intimidation, which is just a good removal card. Alright, so the reason we did a speed run is because we have a new section here. Let's talk about how these numbers can help you in the tournaments. But before we do that, a quick shout out to my teammates of Alter Oranya for engaging with me in helpful discussions. This section would not be possible without them. So first off, choosing a leader. As we saw, Sigismar and Afanas are the decks to beat, but what not might be as clear is that Teija should also be up there. Why? Because she can counter Sigismar, but falls hard to Afanas, which then gives us a rock, paper, scissors format. And that makes sense, right? Teija only had 8 decks represented in the top 4, but her overall performance was the best. And that's because she countered Sigismar, which is the most represented deck total. Then we have Fed, who performed better than Teija in the rankings. And this is, as we believe, because Fed has a worse matchup against Sigismar than Teija does, but a better matchup against Afanas than Teija. Just to be clear though, Afanas still has both of them beat, and that's why we excluded Fed from the rock, paper, scissors format. However, she is still a solid pick. Now, how does this help you? Well, you either pick Sigismar, Afanas, or Teija and join the roulette, or you play something that counters the meta, or you play a deck that replaces one of the 3 aforementioned decks in its role, that then has a better matchup against its weaknesses, which in this case would be Fed. Now that we know our faction and leader, we have to create a deck. For that, we can just check the list I provided and select some of the most played cards. Almost too easy to be true, right? Well, it is. This is only a starting point. You'll have a decent deck if you do this, but you'll have to test it and tweak it to your liking and your local meta. Deck building is a big part of any card game, Alter being no exception. The meta keeps changing and decks keep evolving, so yours will have to evolve with them. And if you want to make something anti-meta, you can still look at the list to see what cards you'll have to counter. Continuing with deck building, it's time to pick our uniques. Some people like to do this before creating their deck, but I don't see the benefit for it. Currently, we don't have enough draw power to ensure that you see your uniques, so starting and building around them just seems like a trap, right? You either draw into your uniques and maybe not lose, versus not drawing them and certainly losing. So we pick our uniques after creating a deck, because now we know what the general focus and theme of our deck is. For instance, Sigismar wants token spam, or Afanas would like spell recursion. Now, the really good uniques are a bit pricey, and if you don't have the money for them, don't worry. You can also just look at your rare slots and see if a unique can fill one of those spots. This is good because the rare cards are the backbone of your deck anyway. You see them more consistently, and they are usually better than the commons. They should carry you to victory. So having 3 uniques that free up 3 rare slots is great, because you're basically playing 3 additional rares. Alright, it's time to play, and practice makes perfect, my friends. So go out there and practice, but do so consciously. Don't just play a match and be like, okay, I got my daily match in, I'm done. That doesn't work. After the match, think about it and analyze it. Win or lose, ask yourself, why did I win? Or why did I lose? What was the turning point in the match? Or can I identify key moments? And maybe most important of all, ask your opponent those questions. I know it might seem scary, especially if you've won and your opponent seems salty. but this really helps you and your opponent to grow. Heck, I even announced during a match that I'm faced with a tough choice and tell my opponent that I would like to discuss it afterwards. Something like, "Oh, this is hard. Say, I'd really appreciate to hear your thoughts on the matter later. But for now, I'll play this and that." Also, don't only practice your worst matchups. Definitely practice those the most. But as you do, keep in mind that your strong matchups will practice against you. So play those decks at least a few times as well. Finally, fundamentals. There are certain basic skills that you need to be aware of and apply if you want to get that table 1 gaming experience. Things like channeling, which I call the act of placing a card into your mana. It doesn't have an official term that I know of, and seeing that there is a spell that does exactly that with mana in its name, well, almost does exactly that, I started to call it channeling. But I digress. If there is an official term, let me know in the comments. So, things like channeling, resource management, playing to your outs, identifying problems, knowing when to commit, when to overcommit, and when to hold back, etc. Again, the video is getting pretty long as it is, so I won't be diving into this. If you'd like me to expand on any of these topics, well, that's what the comment section is for. And that's it. I hope this video helped you, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the new format and new sections. I'll be testing some decks myself in the coming weeks. If you'd like to see me struggle with that, let me know, and maybe I can do a gameplay video. Good luck during your expeditions and Tumult Championships if you are attending those. I myself will be attending championships on the 17th at Site 7, the 20th at Tabletop Kingdom in Rotterdam, and the 3rd at Tabletop Kingdom in The Hague. Great stores, good vibes, and nice people. Definitely check them out. If you're at the same tournaments as me, fight me in the fray, or just come and say hey. Either way, thanks for watching, and until next time.